The heroes of today's episode are in love with the sky. For some of them, it's a sport, for others, it's a job, and some jump just for fun. I asked many people who have done over 2,000 jumps, and all of them said the same thing, which I very much agree with. When you jump out of the plane, you don't think about anything else. You are here and now. In today's episode, we will find out how parachuting is developing in Ukraine and why people have so much fun with it. Parachuting is developing more and more rapidly. With every year, more and more people jump with a parachute. For example, last year, I'm judging by my own students. I had about 30 people, and this year I have 45 students, which is 50% more, and it is not even the end of the season. I go parachuting abroad and in Ukraine, but the most developed country in terms of parachuting is the US. I think it's because the US government invests more money into the development of parachuting, because they have a lot of wind tunnels and more drop zones. I've been parachuting for 8 years now, and I've made over 2,000 jumps. Prior to that, I studied at the National Aviation University and was doing nothing interesting. Then, when I worked in Norway for 2 years, I was walking through a very beautiful place in the mountains and saw people parachuting off the mountains, which deeply impressed me, because I had no idea that something like that existed. Later, I started wondering how I could do that myself. It turns out that you have to do 200 jumps from a plane before jumping off a mountain, and before jumping out of a plane, you need to learn how to jump out of a plane. The easiest way to do that is to take an AFF course. I looked up schools that offer these courses, signed up for them, and started jumping. There's one thing you start realizing with each jump. I asked many people who have done over 2,000 jumps, and all of them said the same thing, which I very much agree with. When you jump out of the plane, you don't think about anything else. You find yourself in the here and now. I have to go back 3 years to recall how I started parachuting. It was my first parachute jump, and it was a tandem. It so happened that my college friends decided to go parachuting one day, but I missed that moment. I realized that I also wanted to go with them, only when they'd already gone. How could I have missed that? I really wanted to go parachuting. I was preparing, and I wanted it to be during the warm season. But it so happened that it was autumn, the weather was changeable, and we went to Chaika. I called them and made an appointment, but when we arrived, they said we'd have to wait for more suitable weather conditions. So Mom and I walked around for 2 or 3 hours until they told us that we would most likely not be able to jump that day, because the sky was overcast and the cloudiness was low. So we packed and went home, which took us an hour. As soon as we got back home, they called us back and said, "We've started jumping. We can wait for you if you want." So we went back, and we jumped. I cannot say that I felt a surge of emotions during that moment. It was calm. Mom asked me if I liked it. I said it was cool, but when we got home, I realized that I wanted to jump again and again. I wanted some excitement in my life when I turned 18, so I went to the mountains. I went mountaineering. It was my first outing in the mountains after my first year at university. When I went back for a year or two, I was extremely bored, but I could not go anywhere from the city where I lived. So I had to look for extreme sports there, on the spot. I ended up being parachuting. I like the sense of freedom. I like being here and now. It is the moment that you enjoy and actually feel alive during those milliseconds. Despite the fact that I have a child now, I continue doing this sport and continue to keep active and athletic because I live to be happy and to enjoy life. There are a lot of skydiving disciplines. The most popular ones are free flying, group acrobatics, freestyle when people make large formations in the sky, when beautiful girls do the splits and guys fly near them. It's very beautiful. There are also a lot of wind tunnel disciplines. In other words, everything we do in the air gets done in wind tunnels. There is also the wingsuit flying, when people fly like birds. They're also called flying squirrels. In 8 years, I have tried almost every discipline in parachuting, starting with canopy formation and ending with free flying. And there are some disciplines that I particularly like. For example, free flying where you have no bounds, the whole sky is yours, and you can do all kinds of things with your body. It's very spectacular, and there's no limit to perfection, so you can keep flying and training all your life. You can do things in the sky. Those things can be either in one or several dimensions. Everyone starts with group acrobatics, because we'll learn flat flying and controlling our free fall horizontally. We start developing from there. We practice turning. We start working in pairs, or perhaps with even more people.
Начинаем работать в паре с кем-то, может быть, даже не только в паре, а с большим количеством людей. Все начинают с групповой акробатики, в том числе.
Everyone starts with group acrobatics, and so did I. I also started with group acrobatics. It was the first discipline that was introduced to me, and I even participated in competitions. Now I am parachuting free flying. It is regarded as a more difficult discipline, because you do not just develop yourself in one dimension, because you do acrobatic moves in other dimensions.
Ты еще делаешь какие-то фигуры в других плоскостях. Каждая дисциплина, конечно, интересна по-своему.
Each discipline is interesting in its own way, but I'm more into free flying right now because it's in this discipline that you start feeling your body, your muscles, how they respond to your inputs and actions.
Твои вводы на твои действия.
To know how to perform free flying jumps, it's better to practice in a wind tunnel, because there's where you resist the airflow. It works on the principle of resisting the air that blows from below.
Воздуху, который дует снизу.
I've tried jumping in formations, group acrobatics, and the free-flying discipline. I like everything. I like all the disciplines. I plan to gradually get better at all of them, starting with flat flying and so on, right up to head-down flying. There are about a dozen flying clubs in Ukraine where you can learn how to skydive. There are some in Rivne, Lviv, Chernihiv, several in Kiev, in the south of Ukraine, in Dnipro. There is a very large airfield in Kharkiv. For someone who wants to learn skydiving, this is easy to do in Ukraine. They train using an accelerated program that came from the US called AFF.
Она пришла из Америки. Это программа AFF. За 8
In 8 jumps, a person can learn the basics and start jumping on their own.
самостоятельно прыгать. По такому
My training was the same. I performed 8 jumps and learned the theory.
теорию. А сейчас
It's even easier to learn now because the first wind tunnel has appeared in Kiev, where we can learn to fly and then take those skills into the sky.
и уже потом переносить все это в небо.
I worked at an IT company, and my colleague, my good friend, invited me to jump for the first time. He took me to an airfield. I knew nothing about that, but I really wanted to jump. We were jumping with military paratrooper parachutes with round canopies. We spent the whole day getting ready. Then they put us in a plane and dropped us out. It was really cool. I remember feeling like a superhero when I landed. When you're starting out, you don't yet understand the ins and outs of it, but you seem to get a kick out of it. With time, you become a professional. You start understanding all those little things, and you get to enjoy it even more. I had no one to jump with after I finished the free fall course. I mean, I had people I could jump with, but I really wanted to learn and not just fall. So I was training with my instructor, whom I'd passed AFF with.
С которой я проходила AFF, и я
And I asked Marina to keep jumping with me,
прыгать, потому что
because she's a very good specialist and instructor in group acrobatics.
групповой акробатики.
Of course, there are educational videos and American textbooks, but learning how to use the theoretical knowledge on what to do in the air is difficult. That's why there are instructors that jump with you.
Сложно, поэтому для этого есть инструктор, который с тобой прыгает. Когда я
When I realized that I wanted to continue improving, I was not as much bored with flat flying as I wanted to learn something new, since this discipline is very broad.
что-то новое, потому что эта дисциплина очень обширная.
I went to a windpipe instructor Alexei, who teaches flat flying, back flying, sit flying, head down flying, and whatever else you want.
Сидя, стоя на голове, как угодно.
Я также
Like many others, I have completed the AFF program, which helped me to become an independent skydiver, and I continue to jump to this very day.
день.
I also keep improving all the time. We have various events, training seminars. I read books and develop myself in this field in various ways.
По-разному развиваю себя в этой области. Для меня парашютный
For me, parachuting is like a science. I like studying everything in detail and digging deep.
и копать вглубь. Это было
It was very cool. It was unforgettable. I remember my first jump. It was fantastic. It felt great. And I can't compare what I felt back then with anything else.
ощущение невероятно. Нельзя ни с чем сравнить.
Самая большая
The
трудность
biggest difficulty for people who want to do parachuting is the cost. It is the first problem that an ordinary person needs to solve. I had to start making 10 times more money.
было заработать в 10 раз больше денег. Потом,
Then
конечно,
there may be some physical limitations, but I know that in the US, 83-year-old grannies set wingsuiting records. The oldest person to jump was probably over 100 years old. So in terms of physical limitations, there are most likely none. Almost anyone can jump.
почти каждый человек может прыгать.
Конечно, страх, он
My fear is always there, of course. It's not like you're no longer afraid after you first jump. You're afraid every time, but in a different way. It is not just the fear of being high in the air. When you begin jumping with someone, you start worrying about doing something wrong.
то, что ты сделаешь что-то неправильно.
Чувство страха немножко
The sense of fear dulls a little the more you practice. But the most important thing is to follow the rules.
правила. Они написаны жизнью.
They're written with lives, so you must follow the safety rules and everything will be fine.
Спорт это как
Parachuting is working with your mind, working with your fear. I really like it because all people are afraid of death, so they have to work with their fear. In terms of my physical shape, I've always been athletic and have always been involved in sports like jogging, mountaineering, and gymnastics. I'm athletic, so the physical aspect is pretty easy for me.
мне довольно просто.
В Украине проводятся
A lot of parachuting competitions take place in Ukraine. The Ukrainian championships in group acrobatics and free flying. This year they are going to try to set a new record in canopy formation, which is when they form an image in the sky using deployed canopies.
много проводится сборов по большим формациям.
There are also a lot of events with big formations. They set new all-Ukrainian records every year. They also held wingsuiting competitions this year. Teams that get the top spots in the Ukrainian championships can take part in international competitions and the World Championship. But taking part in the World Championship requires quite a lot of money. There are currently very few sponsors and very little support from the government, so we do everything on our own.
Поэтому все делаем своими силами. Я
I've won many Ukrainian competitions. This year I became the champion of Ukraine in free flying, and I'm the champion of Ukraine in various disciplines.
неоднократный по разным дисциплинам.
Each competition makes you better because you have opponents in competition.
У тебя есть
They are very dangerous people who come from all over the world in Ukraine, and you can share and exchange experience, which pushes the entire sport of parachuting upwards.
очень толкает весь парашютный спорт вверх.
Я принимала
I took part in amateur competitions, but not in all Ukrainian ones. I saw myself grow during these competitions.
соревнований.
We began to jump better. We're more confident doing that. All of us are getting better, and it's very nice to see that.
Приятно наблюдать.